Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Healing is Power. I pray that you guys are doing well out there, taking care of yourselves, staying warm. It's been so cold here in Atlanta, Georgia. You guys can find Healing is Power on the following platforms: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Pandora, as well as I'm also on YouTube. You can like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I just talked to many guests about, their healing experience, my healing experience, scripture, and, how important it is to heal in today's society. Tonight, I have a very special guest with me, Mr. George Brooks. He is the CEO of Meta Association, and I'm going to bring him on right now.
Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being on here tonight. I appreciate you.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all.
So you are CEO of Meta Association. Can you talk a little bit about, what you do and how it all started, your journey, what healing means to you, just everything.
Right. Well, about age 7, I began to realize that I was having some issues in terms of my mental health. And my parents were proactive in getting me help. So throughout my adolescence and adult life, I had to deal with that and several other comorbid issues that led to really my degradation. And once I began to realize and really kind of fortify my relationship with God and get over some things like addiction and trauma, I started my nonprofit Meta Association about
Mm-hmm.
5.5 years ago to make sure that no other Black man had to deal with the mental health issues that I was dealing with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We also fight recidivism and promote healthy fatherhood. And that's our purpose. We've been going 5 years. We've done a lot of community outreach. I personally do advocacy work on a one-on-one basis. I'm also engaging in a public speaking career. Just anything I can do to help spread awareness about mental illness in the Black community and try to help destigmatize.
Okay, that's really, really good. I like to hear that. Kind of talk about who you are, George Brooks. Where did your story begin? I know you said you dealt with, some trauma and stuff like that. I
Right.
always like to hear my guest story and, how they push through and all that good
Right.
stuff.
Right. I had an emotionally complicated relationship with my father that made a tremendous impact on me, and even to this day, in the sense that I try to be cognizant of the kind of father I've been.
Hmm.
The second half of our relationship in his life was good, but that first half really did cause some scars and some trauma that I've tried to go ahead and heal myself from. I've also dealt with relationship trauma, divorce trauma, custody battles, addiction, food addiction. So it's kind of like my life is littered with trauma, but the way that I deal with it is I try to take that trauma, turn it inward, process it, deal with it, face it, and use it to try to help as many people as I possibly can. And that's how I heal from it.
Yep, the same thing with me with my podcast. It's been very therapeutic for me to hear others' stories and how they've overcome and everything. I love that. It just gives me hope because I'm still in the healing process, believe it or not. And
Yes.
I hear a lot of people always say, "Oh, it shouldn't take you that long to heal." There's no time frame on healing.
No. Well,
It
but
could take
really, healing is a
30
constant.
years.
Yeah, because healing is a constant thing. It never ends. You never get to the point, especially with trauma and emotional trauma, you never really heal from it
Hmm.
fully to the point where it's not an issue. You can get better at it, but it's usually any kind of significant trauma is going to be a lifelong endeavor to treat, whether that be through therapy, prayer, or medicine. And those are things that we have to start having, conversations about openly and honestly to facilitate people healing, because we got a lot of walking wounded out in the world today, and it's not doing us any good.
Right, right, absolutely. And this is, another reason why I created this podcast because there's so many people holding things in. They don't know, they don't have an outlet, anybody to talk to. So you get all this, suicide and drug usage and just killings and all kind of crazy stuff. So I definitely want this podcast to reach many out there, and just start the healing process. Read scripture, get a better, closer relationship with God. Now I know you just mentioned that you've developed a relationship with God. How has that been with you?
It's been amazing. I think I ran from God most of my life because I was basing my idea of what my relationship should be like according to other people. And once I realized that everyone's relationship with God is an individual thing, it made it a lot easier for me to navigate that relationship. And not everybody that tries to lead you to God is worthy of doing so. But one thing I found is that it takes a combination of things. It takes the spiritual, it takes the medicinal, it takes therapy, it takes the holistic approach, it takes the physical approach to recover. There are five things involved. You cannot do one without the other four. If you just pray about it, it won't work. If you just take medicine and don't do therapy, it won't work. You have to engage in all five areas of recovery in order to not only facilitate your recovery, but to even initiate it in the first place.
Wow, I never knew there was 5 steps to that. That's interesting.
Right, right. I mean,
That's
I kind of came up with that just based on my journey, and I noticed that when I would employ two or three of those things, it wasn't complete. But when I got all five together, when I got my faith right, when I got physically right, when I got my medicine right, when I got the therapy right, and I started doing alternative treatments, it all began to kind of gel and come together. So, I mean, that's one thing I run into when I talk about the stigmatization of mental health is that people want to pick and choose how they treat it. They say, well, I'll just go to church more. Well, that ain't going to do it. Or I'll just take my medicine. That's not going to do it alone. Or I'll just talk to a therapist. That won't do it alone. And that's what so many times we fall short in recovery because we're not really willing to put the work in.
mm-hmm.
We need to follow more people that have been through recovery, and we need to endeavor and work at it because you cannot embark on recovery because of your mother or because of your kids. You have to forget about them and make it about yourself. Because anybody that will ever say, well, I'm getting clean for my kids, you will probably fail. Until you do it for yourself and really, foster a sense of self-interest and humility, you won't be able to heal.
Yeah, yeah. I knew someone some years back that was a alcoholic,
Mhm.
and he was going to AA meetings and all this kind of stuff. He would go to church and speaking with other men and stuff that were recovering addicts and whatnot. And I
Right.
remember this person telling me that they were told that, hey, you won't be able to beat alcoholism until you do it for yourself. You can't do it for a girlfriend, wife, kids. You have to do it for yourself. So when you said that, it just kind of made me think back on that.
Right. Right, and that's the thing. I mean, until you get to the point where you get sick of yourself, no amount of recovery is going to work. That's why we see people continuously going through the rehab process and they're not sticking. One, they may not be ready for it. Two, it may not be the right program for them. Third, they're not ready. They're still thinking about other people when it's a very selfish endeavor, but that's part of self-preservation, and that's something we need to understand and feel okay doing that, and don't feel as though us focusing on ourselves as individuals is somehow a negative thing. When it goes toward the neglect of others or to the disparaging or detriment of others, that's when it's negative. But anything that causes you to improve yourself and embody a sense of self-preservation, that's good.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, coming up, I know you said you went through, some trauma and stuff like that. Did you have anybody that you looked up to, or was there like any kind of like positive escape to, get away from what you were going through?
There was my oldest sister who did the best she could, but she was kind of forced in a position that really was not fair to her. That I think at this point of having to take care of the family and do certain things. And I'm considered an only child now because I don't have anything to do with my family. But back during that time, she really stepped up and did the best she could for me. So that's why it's also important in your healing to develop a healthy support system. You cannot be around negative people. You cannot be around selfish people. You can't be around people that are still in the throes of addiction and refuse to heal. So you have to be very careful about the garden that you place yourself in. Otherwise, instead of you blooming, you end up getting choked out because of all the weeds around you. So that's part of recovery too. And a lot of times in recovery, we have to up and move. I upped and moved from my hometown of Memphis because that was going to be part of my recovery. I could not stay in that same arena, same neighborhood, same people, and think that it was going to lead to my sobriety. And that's just not. It just doesn't make sense. So you have to be willing to put the change in and be uncomfortable, to recover.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. August 25th of 2010, I lost my mother. And, I could have stayed where I'm from, upstate New York. I could have stayed up there, but my spirit was saying, you have to relocate. That's the only way you're going to be able to heal, because not saying that I didn't really have support and people that would be there to help me heal, but I just, where I grew up at, it's not a bad place. It's trying to get better in different areas, but I just knew I had to leave. It was time.
Right,
And
it was time.
it was hard. It was hard because at that time, my oldest, she was 2. So I had a 2-year old, and I was my mother's only child, the youngest of my
Mhm.
father's kids. So everything was on me trying to take care of a toddler. That was stressful. And I had
Right.
just separated from her father 2 months before my mother passed. So that was a lot.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing is, when we have instances and situations like that, we have to really be and kind of block out the external noise of people who aren't in our situation, because you will have people, as you alluded to earlier, that will say, well, why is it taking you so long to heal? And that's subjective. It depends on the individual. So a lot of recovery is a lot of solitude. It can be lonely because you have to do it on your own. And just in dealing with
Yeah.
those kind of situations you just described, I mean, you really have to develop a sense of self and be patient with yourself and not let other people's pace dictate what and how you do things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, what other people think doesn't matter. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
And I think we put far too much value on other people's opinions, whether it be because of social media or social peer pressure. That's a sign of weakness. when you
Yeah.
don't move or don't do this thing because of that, that shows some mental fragility there.
Hmm.
But we need to be stronger people and act in our self interest and do that more.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree. I want to ask you also, and I'm not sure if you dealt with this type of thing, but can you speak on a little bit on how to deal with narcissism?
Wow. The best way to deal with that is to be aware of it, recognize it. If you are a narcissist, try to engage in therapy and change those traits about yourself because they can be destructive. If you're dealing with a narcissist, call them on it. Tell them, give them examples of how they're displaying that narcissistic behavior and be transparent in terms of how it's affecting the relationship and affecting you. And if they refuse to change or refuse to listen, then you may have to walk away. I'm not one of those people who's going to tell you not to walk away. You might have to walk away from Big Mama. You might have to walk away from your kids. You might have to walk away from your family. If that's what you have to do for you to survive, then you need to do it. Simple as that. I don't care who it is.
Yeah,
Never love anybody too much. You can't walk away from them if you have to, because you're the one that has to live, not them.
I agree. That's very true. Very true. Um, was there anybody else, growing up that you looked up to besides your sister? Or like, what kind of things did you do to kind of escape? Did you have a lot of friends? Did you have any hobbies?
Luckily, I've always been able to make friends easily, but I keep my tight circle even to this day.
Yeah.
I've always been a bit of a bohemian, so things like art, drawing, writing, music, those things have always brought me great comfort and continue to this day. So
Hmm.
that's typically what I rely upon when I'm feeling stress or anxiety. One thing I do is I play chess. Before I go into a meeting, business meeting, I play around the chess. Gets me centered, gets my mind focused, gets me working right, gets me thinking right. It's a nice coping mechanism. And part of recovery is to try to find those little things, those little safe spaces mentally and emotionally to where you can escape and ground yourself and get back to what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love music. I love to cook. You just got to kind of find what you like and, kind of melt into it,
Right, right, exactly, exactly. And that takes a lot of trial and error. I can speak of one instance of mental illness with bipolar disorder. It often takes about 10 years to find a cocktail of medications that works. And once you
Really.
do that, they may work for 3 months and something changes and you have to start all over again. So that's one of the many facets of mental illness that I think people are unaware of is just how tiring and exhausting it is just managing that. And so you have someone that's managing a diagnosable mental health condition along with the normal stresses of life is going to be hard on them. And that's why we have to advocate and protect our fellow man, especially those dealing with mental and emotional issues.
Yes, yep, yep, absolutely. I deal with, I have panic attacks. I have real bad anxiety,
Right,
and I'm
right,
I'm not on any kind of medication. I just kind of deal with it with prayer and, whatnot. I really not big on like medication and stuff like that, but
right.
of
Well,
course,
it's
if you
yeah.
need it, you need it. But
Yeah, and that's my thought. I'm a type 1 diabetic. If I don't take my insulin, I'm going to be sick. If I don't take my psych meds, I'm going to be sick. So it's the same thing to me. To me, being bipolar is no different than someone having cancer. They're just manifesting themselves in different ways. And when you have to look at mental health from a health standpoint, and we oftentimes don't. We get so hung up in our preconceived notions of what mental health is and what it's supposed to be, even if we believe it or not, that we forget it's a health issue. You can take the brain of someone that's bipolar, do a CT scan, and place it next to a CT scan of someone without bipolar, and they're going to be a marked difference. There's going to be a marked difference. So we first, especially as Black people, as a diaspora, have to get over this thinking that it's not real, that it's somehow a white man's problem. It doesn't affect us because it's affecting us every day, and it's keeping us broken, busted. It's keeping us second, third, and fourth class citizens because we don't deal with our mental health. So how can we? How dare we talk about having equality? We can't even deal with ourselves yet. So, I mean, what kind of ground do you think we're going to gain in society as Black people? We don't deal with our mental health. We don't deal with our family secrets. We don't deal with those things that are really impeding us and holding us back.
absolutely, and it's like we're. I don't know if it's that we're ashamed to talk about it, or we're scared, or I
All
don't
the
know what
above.
it is. All the above.
We, we've let those tenets from slavery, the things that they imparted upon us as Black people from slavery, to continue to this day, except we are the ones perpetrating it now, not them. And a lot of that was ignorance. Ignorance of they kept us ignorance of things like finances, of our health, of our mental health. And now that we have access to information on an equal footing, now there's no excuse. There's no excuse for you not to understand about credit. There's no excuse for you not to understand about mental health or your health in general. Now it's a matter of just some intellectual laziness among our people and getting them to study up on things, address them, and deal with them.
That's very true. Very, very true. I don't get it, but maybe one day our people will. I don't know. I just hope
You know
one day.
what? I don't know either, but I know if things don't change in the next generation or two, we're going to be looking at the further degradation of our place in society. You know, I mean, we'll have a place in society as long as we can dribble a ball, sing, and cook us some food. But as far as having anything substantive that we can really build an economic base on as Black people, that won't happen until we deal with our mental health. It won't. Just won't.
I agree. I agree. I definitely agree. So how long? I'm not sure if you spoke on that earlier, but how long have you had Meta Association? How long have you been the CEO of Meta Association, and how many people have you reached?
Well, I'm not sure about how many people we reach because we haven't been keeping tabs. We're starting to do that. But I started it 5.5 years ago, fully registered 501c3, fully filed with the Secretary of State. So we're all legit. Any donations, you can donate at Meta Association, $ Meta Association on Cash App. All your donations are tax deductible. I do public speaking in collaboration with other like-minded people and nonprofits. So you can reach me at 901-631-4300. We need for any opportunity to get out among the people and kind of propagate what we have to say in terms of dealing with mental health. That's really the first thing. And we're also developing programs, like I'm developing a men's course and a co-parenting course with my good friend and fellow board member Chanel Baptiste out of Leander, Texas, a wonderful therapist. So
Oh,
all of our board of directors are certified in different areas. We have over 50 years of mental health experience between all of us. So we've been going through the pandemic, through the recession, and now that things are starting to turn around and people's fortunes are getting a little bit brighter, we're really looking to take off and do some things and do some revolutionary things in 2024.
awesome, awesome. Thank you for sharing all that information. Um, right now, I always ask my guests, what is the most important thing that you want to tell people out here? I know you touched on mental health. Is there anything else besides mental health that you want to get out there to the people?
Treating each other better. That's one thing that we don't do in this world. We get so busy. We get so busy in what we think is important in our lives, which really isn't that important.
Mhm.
Um, we forget to sometimes slow down and ask someone how they're doing and actually mean it, because you never know how just a couple seconds of your time can change someone's day. So we need to just treat each other better on an individual level. That in
Mhm.
itself will improve all relations between people. It will help people with their mental and emotional health, and I think it'll do a lot of good for people on a personal level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, people are, I don't know, they're such in a rush and it's like nobody cares and everybody's so angry. It's like when I go out of here, it's like, okay, I have to breathe, count to 10, because I'm like, I'm dealing with all different kind of spirits out here.
Right.
And I have always been very sensitive to um, feeling other people's energy.
Hmm.
So when I'm on my way to work and I'm around a whole group of people on the bus or the train or whatever like that, it's like I just kind of get tensed up because it's like everybody's just, I don't know.
It's
Like,
been it's part of being an empath, and being an empath means that you're going to be tired. It's going to be tiring.
yeah.
So I mean, it's
Is that what that
exhausting.
is?
Mhm.
I said, is that what that is, an empath?
Yes, an empath. That's someone um, who can pick up on the emotions of others. That's sensitive to the emotions of others, and being an advocate and kind of doing what we do. We're typically those type of people, and it can be tiring. And that's why you have to have those coping mechanisms. You have to have time by yourself. You have to have good supportive relationships. Otherwise, you'll just keep kind of going down this rabbit hole of misery. Because for you to help people, sometimes you do have to absorb a lot of emotions and a lot of trauma and a lot of pain from people. But that's all part of us doing the work to try to help each other heal and to try to help each other be better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember one time I was out and this lady just walked up to me. Never seen this lady a day in my life, and she just told me her whole life story from A to Z, and I'm like, uh, you know. But she just seemed after she finished speaking with me, it was like she felt so much better.
Right, right,
And she's like, I know you don't know me. And she's like, I'm sorry. But I'm like, maybe she just felt like out of all the people in the world, or maybe even people in her family, she just felt like she could just come up to a total stranger and
right,
just let it all out.
right, right. And
So,
that's the thing, it really, we have to take better care of ourselves because we're not.
mhm.
And we're not taking good care of each other. And I think that's why the world is so fractured right now. We have
Yeah.
so much divisiveness because divisiveness is profitable.
Mhm.
They people profit off men and women not getting along. It's just a lot. So we really have to try to deal with ourselves on an individual level, and before we can integrate other people into our healing, we have to deal with ourselves first.
Absolutely, absolutely. Self comes first, and you can work on the other things, but you
Right.
definitely have to work with yourself first because I always say if I'm not right, my kids aren't
Nobody.
gonna be right.
Mhm. That's right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Wow, just everybody I work with Meta Association, the people that follow me on Facebook under George P. Brooks. I repost a lot from people that I deal with business wise and personally. A lot of good events going on, so I can encourage people to scroll down my page, George P. Brooks on Facebook. We have a new site for Meta Association coming out in about a week or so. It's going to be at metaassociation.org. That's METTA. We have a cash app for donations at $ Meta Association. You can reach me at 901-631-4300 if you need resources or advocacy work based on mental health or emotional health. And we're pretty much just making ourselves available to anyone that needs our help. If we don't have the answers, we will find them for you or definitely point you in the right direction. So no call will not go unanswered, and no feeling or no call for help will be abandoned.
Thank you so much for sharing that information. Well, George, I thank you so much for being a part of Healing is Power podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your story, what you do, and how this world can become a better place. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a blessing being here, and I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.